Cyndi Thomsen, owner of Creating a Passionate Life. Live your most empowered life as you like it. I have a question for you. Do you have a story that you would love to share with the world, but you wrestle with whether anyone would care or what that story is? Let me ask you another question. Do you have a list of things that you would like to accomplish? And I don't mean a list of things that you want to do for your family or your career or even your business. I mean things that you as a person would like to do, things that you yearn to do, things that you desperately want to do. What's on that list? What's holding you back from doing anything on that list? Perhaps what's holding you back is what held me back for many years. There's a little voice sitting on this shoulder. It's a little person that every once in a while whispered in my ear and said, "What makes you think you can do that? What are people going to say?" It's pretty typical for many of us. I've spent much of my adult life wrestling with two questions. Who am I? And what is my role? How do I show up in the world? Now, those are not trivial questions for anyone, and they weren't trivial questions for me. But for many years, I was stuck with how to answer those two questions. In fact, I would give the typical answers. I'm Cyndi Thomsen. I'm mother of. I am wife to. I am daughter of. I work for. I do this. I do that. But none of it spoke to who I was inside my heart, inside all of the things that I really desperately wanted to do. Let me share a story with you about my journey. In 2016, my husband came home from work and said, "Would you like to go to New York City? I've got a conference there." My answer was a definitive and loud and enthusiastic, "Yes, I want to go." Why? Because that was something that I had yearned to do from the age of 10. I was in my 50s when he asked me that question. So it had been a long time before I actually acted on my yearning. You see, the reason I wanted to go from the age of 10 is my parents had taken me to the Guthrie Theater in Minneapolis to see my very first show on stage, William Shakespeare's The Merchant of Venice. I was enthralled, enveloped in the story, in the actors, in the environment, in the atmosphere. And I knew from that point on, that's what I wanted to do. For many years, I thought that thing I wanted to do was to act, was to be on stage. So I journeyed on that path through junior high school and even into college. And then I met my husband and I got married. And we journeyed down the road for him to get his PhD. Now, I have no regrets for that. And I had great jobs on that journey and experienced many great things. But I put that yearning for my 10-year-old self away, hidden somewhere down below. And in 2016, it was reawakened and allowed to happen. Now, there's another part of that story. I had my children, my 3 sons. I had my 3 sons in my 30s. I was 34, 35, and 37 when I had them. And I was fortunate enough to be able to stop working and stay home with them. When they had all started school and it was time for me to start imagining what I would do next, I found myself staring at a brick wall. That brick wall was built by those little voices from over here. My self-doubt, fear, and lack of confidence. I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know who I was. I did not know what I wanted to be. So in my early 40s, when I went back to work, I decided to take a year as an AmeriCorps Vista volunteer. I had several offerings that I had applied for. Several of them, I would say probably about 6 or 7, were in the literacy and teaching camp. I like storytelling. I believe that education's important. I can do that. But there was one outlier that I applied for as well. I applied for it because it was close to home. I knew I wouldn't have to travel a distance. I also knew that I wouldn't have to be separated from my 3 sons and my husband. It was here locally in the greater Seattle area, and it was for a program called Seattle Youth Garden Works. And my job was to have been, had I been selected for it, to work with homeless and at risk for being homeless youth and young adults. After the interview process was all over for all of these positions, the one I was offered was the Seattle Youth Garden Works. It was my job to be their coordinator, to help them get connected to services, to learn job skills, to learn how to communicate, open a bank account, basically help them reintegrate into a community. What I discovered in the process of that is here was a group of people that felt so disenfranchised, they felt powerless. They had run away from bad situations. They were hiding. They were hiding from communities. So reintegrating them into a community was not an easy task. Just so happened that some of the skills that I learned while I was studying theater helped me make a connection for many of them. We began doing some improv. We began doing some writing. Several of them really enjoyed music, liked to write their own music. A couple of them were poets, and one had a play inside of her. So what did we do? We wrote or created their stories into a form that they could share with the community. When I was all done with my year of service, I looked back upon it and went, wow, I helped people connect with their story and share it with the world. I was asked to help stage a production of Polaroid stories in the University District to raise awareness about homelessness for youth and young adults. What an impact. City council members were there. Community leaders were there. Community neighbors were there. And all of a sudden a light bulb went off. They had a real life connection to what these young people were experiencing. And it changed the community. When I left my year as an AmeriCorps Vista, I went in search of what I could do. What could I do to keep this going? Well, I had earned education credit, so I went back to school and I got my MBA. Why? because I thought I might want to open a school to work with people who felt disenfranchised, felt powerless, didn't know how to speak up for themselves. I was in my late 40s at this point in time and graduated with my MBA, was chosen as a speaker for the school that I graduated from, and spoke about how I was a phoenix rising from the ashes, and I hope to help others do the same. Well, I couldn't find a job to do that. I didn't have the financing to do that. So guess what? These little voices over on the shoulder got louder. And I went in search of a job. I needed to help pay the bills. I was going to have 3 sons that wanted to go back to school. So now what was I going to do? 2016 happened, and I went to New York. I saw Broadway show after Broadway show because I had saved my money, and that's what Broadway was all about. Something else happened while we were in New York. Each day and every walk caused me pain. It caused me more and more pain. In fact, the day that we went to Central Park, and we walked down the hill from the Natural History Museum towards the castle and the theater in the center of the park, I felt like I couldn't walk anymore. But I didn't want to tell my husband because he was so happy that he got to do this for me. But then I realized something. I was going to have to get myself back out of the park. So every step became more and more painful, to the point that we were near the fountain at the bottom of the hill. And I just started to cry. I couldn't walk anymore. And I looked at my husband. I said, I can't walk anymore. He said, oh, come on, honey. It's just a little bit more. I'll get a rickshaw. We'll get to the bus. We'll get back to the hotel. It took us 20 minutes to climb that hill of 100 feet. We got on a rickshaw, which took us to the exit of the park. At the exit of the park, we got on a bus. We went back to the hotel. Now, we still had one more show to go to that night. So we changed, and my husband said, it's obvious you're not going to be able to walk. I'm going to get us an Uber. Now, mind you, the theater we were going to was just 6 blocks away. And I felt awful that it was going to cost us money to get there and get back because of my pain. Funny thing is, I didn't know what was causing my pain. So when we came home from New York, I went to the doctor, and the doctor said, it appears that you need to have your hips replaced. You have no more cartilage in your hips. However, you have to lose 30 pounds in order to do it. A couple weeks later, a person that I had crossed my path in about 2011 crossed my path again. It was Rachel Jane Groover. She had a program that helped women, and now also men, discover their personal power, presence, voice, creates calm. I started taking her course. Mind you, I weighed 234 pounds. I had no cartilage in my hips. I needed to lose weight but couldn't exercise. It caused too much pain. So I decided that perhaps the personal power and presence and calming myself down would help me lose weight. It did. 6 months later, I had lost enough weight that I could start working out with a trainer who helped me lose the rest of the weight so that I could have the surgery. And then COVID hit. January of 2020 hit. I was working in the cruise industry at the time, another job. And I remember very distinctly, January 13th, I got a phone call from one of my clients who was stuck on a ship in the middle of the Pacific Ocean because no one would let them dock. Now, mind you, that was before the rest of the world knew what was happening. I didn't know what to say to him. I said, I'll let you know as soon as I talk to my supervisor. Hung up, went and talked to my supervisor, who said, you're not supposed to know that. How come you know that? You shouldn't tell anyone. Apparently, we had known 3 days beforehand, but we're not ready to release that information. I began questioning my job. I began questioning the industry I worked in. I began seeking myself again. Here I had the ability to lose weight, get my hips replaced, and now I was stuck in a job that wasn't who I was, and I was stuck in the middle of the ocean with my client and no help for them. I decided that I needed to take some of the things that I had learned from my mentor, Rachel Jane Groover, and create a program to help empower people to claim their role and power in this life. Why? Life is short. And if we're all stuck and lost and floundering in the middle of the Pacific Ocean or the middle of a park in pain, or not knowing how to answer the question, who am I and what is my role? Then what are we? As I have traveled down many roads and many paths, trying to seek a way to remove the obstacles, the brick walls that were put there by myself ultimately, but it felt like by others. I have learned what it means to have inner power, presence, and I know how to use my voice to create the life that I passionately want. On my journey, I have learned how to help others as well. I work with women and men who want to be respected and noticed in a bigger way. They want to improve their relationships or even find a partner to journey in this life with. Many of my clients seek to improve their income through their business or career. One of the biggest things that my clients really want is help in stopping other people from draining their energy. While there are many coaches who can help with much of this, my unique approach looks at your life like a story. Like I did with those youth and young adults, I seek to discover the hidden characters and meanings of the things that have occurred that may be holding you back. and I relate my coaching very much to Jacques' monologue from As You Like It by William Shakespeare. All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They all have their exits and their entrances, and one man or woman in his lifetime plays many parts, his acts being of 7 ages. Would you like those 7 ages to be things that you choose to do? My work brings together a community of people who want to be supported and a part of a circle that includes others. This unique community seeks to lift themselves in order to transform the people and world around them, creating their own entrances and exits and setting the stage for their own success. Whether you're an individual who seeks more meaning and purpose, or perhaps you're an entrepreneur or a business owner who wants to be valued, or maybe a nonprofit that wants to create a purposeful community, you are welcome in this circle. If my story touched a familiar chord within yourself, please join me at an upcoming Introduction to Claiming Your Role and Power class, or an Art of Feminine or Masculine Presence introductory class. For more information, click the link in the About section or send me an email at coachcindy@cindythomsen.net. Thank you for your time, and I hope you have a fabulous evening.